So the veins that drain the heart muscle, they don't just dump randomly back into the chambers. They collect together into one large venous channel called the coronary sinus. This sinus is like a big collecting vein located on the posterior side of the heart, in that same coronary sulcus groove. And it has an opening directly into the right atrium. So it pours all that deoxygenated blood from the heart muscle right back where it needs to go to get sent to the lungs.
The coronary sinus.
Yeah.
Are there main veins feeding into it that we should know?
Yep. There are three main ones that usually parallel the major arteries. The biggest is the great cardiac vein. It starts near the apex, the tip of the heart, on the front. And it runs right alongside the LAD artery, the left anterior descending. So logically, it drains most of the territory supplied by the LCA system, the front and left side of the heart. Remember the LAD? Think great cardiac vein running with it.
Okay, great vein follows the LAD, drains the LCA territory. What are the other two?
Then you have the middle cardiac vein. This one runs up the posterior surface right alongside the PDA, the posterior descending artery. So it primarily drains the territory supplied by the RCA, especially the posterior aspect. And finally, there's the small cardiac vein. This one runs along the right margin, kind of paralleling the right marginal artery. And it also mainly drains territory supplied by the RCA.
So great cardiac vein for the left side LCA territory. Middle and small cardiac veins, mostly for the right side and back RCA territory.
Generally speaking, yes. And the crucial point is that all three of these, great, middle, and small, ultimately funnel their collected blood into that one main exit pipe, the coronary sinus, which then empties directly into the right atrium, completing that heart-to-heart circuit.
Okay, anatomy mapped out, supply and return. One last really important functional question. If the heart suddenly needs to work much harder, like during exercise, how does it make sure it gets the extra oxygen it needs, like right away? How is that flow regulated so quickly?
That's a fantastic question. And the regulation is remarkably elegant. It's mostly controlled locally, right there in the heart muscle itself, by metabolic signals, not so much by nerves initially. So if the heart muscle starts working harder, it uses up oxygen faster than it's being delivered for a split second. This creates a tiny temporary state of low oxygen or hypoxia right in that working tissue.
And that lack of oxygen is the signal.
That's the primary signal. That local hypoxia immediately triggers the smooth muscle in the walls of the small coronary arterioles, the resistance vessels, to relax. This causes massive vasodilation. The vessels widen significantly. And this widening can increase blood flow through the coronary system by maybe 4, even 5 times the resting level, almost instantaneously. It's incredibly responsive, driven by the tissue's own needs.
Is there a specific chemical messenger involved in that process?
Yeah.
Our sources mention one.
Yes, adenosine is a key player here. When heart muscle cells are working hard, they break down ATP, their energy currency, very rapidly. A byproduct of that breakdown is adenosine. And adenosine acts directly on those coronary arterioles, causing them to dilate. So the harder the heart works, the more adenosine it produces, the more the vessels open up to deliver more blood. It's a perfect local feedback loop.
So it's mostly local metabolites like adenosine driving this. Does the nervous system, like fight or flight, play any role?
It does play a role, but it's generally considered secondary or modulatory compared to that powerful local metabolic control. The sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, does cause some vasodilation in the coronary arteries, preparing for increased demand. And the parasympathetic system, mainly through the vagus nerve, can cause some mild vasoconstriction. But the key thing for you to remember is that these neural effects are generally slower and less potent than the immediate powerful vasodilation triggered by the heart muscle's own metabolic state. Local demand rules.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this whole circuit then. We start with oxygenated blood leaving the main pump, the aorta. It immediately enters the heart's own pipes, the right and left coronary arteries, RCA and LCA, and their branches. These deliver oxygen to the thick heart muscle, the myocardium. Then the deoxygenated blood gets collected by the cardiac veins, the great, middle, and small. They all merge into the coronary sinus on the back of the heart, which dumps that blood right back into the right atrium to start the whole body circuit over again. It's the heart feeding itself.
That's the loop, exactly. A self-contained, absolutely critical circuit. And maybe a final thought for you to ponder, based on what we discussed about dominance. We said 60 to 80% of people are right dominant, meaning their crucial posterior supply, the PDA, comes from the longer RCA. But remember how short that left coronary artery main stem is, just 2 or 3 centimeters? Now think about the small percentage of people who are left dominant. Their entire supply to the front, the side, and the critical posterior PDA all hinges on that single, very short LCA trunk before it branches. What kind of errant structural vulnerability or maybe even advantage does that put them at if something goes wrong right at the origin of that tiny 2 centimeter vessel? It's built for massive delivery, but maybe less resilient to a single point failure right at the start. Something to think about.